Hey, welcome to the show, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. Arif Halaby along with Jeff Gerard, talking about your family's finances, of course, getting out of debt, managing money, planning for your future. What is it that you plan on doing with the rest of your life? You know, look, we've spoken of this before, but retirement, that word has changed. It's become something different, right? In your life, you have decided that, you know what, retirement is about what? Oh, well, at least when we were younger, you know, I said this just recently. My grandmothers on both sides of my family, I never remember them not old, right? I never remember them not with gray hair and just older, wiser women. Today's grandmothers are getting their hair and nails done, and they look like they are just not the same as when I grew up. I don't know if that's stereotypical or what, but it just seems that women are becoming grandmothers and or taking care of themselves at a much younger age, and all of a sudden, they are retired. 62, 65. Maybe you worked at a place, the city or a county or a job where they have this formula that you hit the magic 85, right? Your age and the number of years you've worked. That together combined, and when it reaches the number of 80, 85, 92, whatever the number is that your union or the city or whatever it is negotiated, then now you are retired. So what does that look like? What does that mean for you? Because for so many people, our examples of retirement were older folks that knitted and quilted with the Women's Guild, and you know the men sat around and played canasta and shuffleboard or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're thinking, I don't want to retire. No, thank you. That's not for me.
Well, think of it this way. My great aunt just had her 100th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're talking about thinking of your grandparents.
Speaking of birthdays,
Oh, you suck.
we've got a very special birthday in the house.
Oh, I would never do this to anybody. Oh no. We've got this.
It's your awesome day, Arif.
It is. Thank you. This is the closest to it. Yeah, it's just a couple days away, but yes, I am 29. Can you imagine that for the 15th time?
We worked really hard to get the Persia belly dancer, Miss Belly Dancer International
USA,
here,
yes.
here to perform a special dance just for you, but we failed.
Yeah, she's busy because she is training for the next competition and
Exactly.
doing sit-ups. So.
Anyway, we just want to wish you the happiest of birthdays.
Thank you, guys. A lot of fun. I can't believe I started the radio show when I was in my mid-30s. Remember that? That was it. And I have a cake. Wow, a beautiful cake. Fruit. Looks like fruit on the top, and it says abbreviation like texting. It's a texting birthday cake. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Great show.
48 years old. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Back in my day, boy, they didn't just do birthdays. I don't know. Back in my day, your mom used to be able to bring cupcakes to your kindergarten class.
Oh.
Now, you can't do that unless it's pre-packaged and pre-approved, and then can't celebrate birthdays because that offends people. I'm so sorry. But I am very appreciative. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Carl and Jerry Goldman. Cerati Goldman. I like that. We're going to have Carl change his name to Carl Cerati Goldman. I'll check with him on that and see what he thinks. Thanks, guys. Just as your hometown station, AM 1220, KHTS. Arif Halaby and Jeff Gerard. Look, when we're talking retirement, so 48 years old, that's my birthday this week. What does retire? I remember saying, I'm done. I'm retired at 50 years old. I don't care what I have. I was living in my parents' garage, and it was before, at least, I was going to say that before the advent of these fancy calculators, but they probably had them. I just didn't have one. And I was kneeling on the floor, and I had on my bed, my little twin bed, all of the pieces of paper, and I had a regular calculator. and I was trying to figure out what does it cost to buy a house. And so I had to do 360, because it's 360 months, 30-year mortgage, 360 calculations in amortization. That's a little dorky when you're 18, 19 years old. But I'm sitting there going, okay, how much? Oh my gosh, $8 an hour is never going to buy me a house. My parents' home was $200,000, and you do the math backwards, and figure I could just never afford a house. How is this going to ever happen? Today you look at retirement and it's just different. I think it is. I think it just means another career. We should really change the term. Gosh, if you have a name for this new retirement, it's not going to be called retirement anymore. It's going to be called something different. What do we call it?
I think it has to. And as I was saying earlier, my great aunt just turning 100. I'm 39 years old. I have never seen her work a day in her life.
Bum. She's a lazy bum.
And God bless her. She's lived a great life. She lives a modest life, but I would say she's pretty wealthy. She does okay. That means that she and her husband did all the things they were supposed to do. Life lined up correctly for them. And she's been retired for my entire living years on this earth. That's a long time to be without new money coming in.
Think about that. She's probably not lazy, though.
No, not in the least.
She's probably pretty good with a belt or a spoon or whatever she used to kind of straighten you guys up.
She's got every wit about her as you and I do. She's amazing.
I remember my dad used to be able to take a shoe and make that thing turn a corner. I don't know if that's a Middle Eastern thing.
How did they do that?
But he would take that shoe and it would have a boomerang effect because they didn't have to get up.
You want to talk about the ultimate salespeople? How did your parents convince you to go out and pick the thing that you'd be beaten with? Go out and pick a switch. I mean, I'm sure people have heard that. That was a little bit before my time, but I heard the stories. I'm going, who would ever take that?
Today's kids are like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, really?
Our parents have worked really hard. And my mom and dad used to tell me, just wait till you become a parent. You'll understand. Yeah. You know that. You guys have heard that. And then, of course, if you're a lady and you have that daughter, and you're like, oh my goodness, she's just like me. Or you're a man and you have that son, and you're going, uh-oh, that's me. That's a junior me. Now I understand what my mom and dad were talking about back in the day when they would say, just you wait. We have a moment in time in retirement, and the softness I saw in my dad's eyes and his heart when his last daughter was married. All right, 3 sisters and myself. And one of my sisters was the last one of the 4 of us, if you will, to get married. And we all seem to have gotten married within about 5 years or so, but it just became, I don't know, just a different sense. I think he now felt, and now I can retire. And he did, shortly after that, as far as a day-to-day grind. So maybe retirement is a combination of making sure your kids are set in a particular path. And I know this, you never stop worrying about your kids, never. And
I never thought I'd be a 39-year-old baby. I never pictured myself being a baby at this age.
And when your mom says, and now I'm retired, what do they do? Or your dad says, and now I'm retired. That doesn't mean they sit in a corner, just wait to pass away, right?
Right.
That just means that they sit around and they say, hey, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't like to do that. I want to do this instead. Or you now get to go to work, and because you don't have to do it for money, there's just something special or different about your attitude that day, I think, isn't there?
I would say so, because now it becomes a choice of what you want to do versus what you feel like you have to do.
Yeah, and the world changes quickly when you're trying to figure out the next step of your life after your children are set up, after your bills are paid, after enough money, whatever that number is set aside, and you can say, okay, now I'm going to work for me. You've heard me say a story before about a 44-year-old physician that we had as a client.
Yep.
3 offices. And he became a doctor because his dad wanted him to become a doctor. And you heard me say why. You remember why? He was a podiatrist.
Right, he was a podiatrist.
Because his family had webbed feet.
Oh,
and
that's
they were
right.
the doctor all the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that exists, webbed toes where the skin is attached in between the toes. And they were at the doctor all the time. I don't know what the time frame was, but it was basically a direction that he became passionate about. Like a friend of mine, for example, became a dentist because his teeth were all messed up and he had to go to braces, and now they look beautiful. And in his teenage life, he said, that's what I want to be, and today he is. So, sometimes an event occurs in our life that kind of directs our path. And sometimes everybody around you is telling you, and this is what you're going to do. You're going to follow in your mom's footsteps or in your dad's footsteps. And then there's a moment in time when you say, I'm done. I don't
And
wanna
at the end of that story that you're telling, this man that was a doctor decided to change his path, and it was at a very
did.
pivotal time in his life.
He did. He sold, as soon as his student loans were paid off, he sold his practices. And of course, he had some money saved. And he went and started developing property down in Central America. And that became his passion, was to be a real estate developer, of all things. I don't know. We've kind of lost touch over the years, so I don't know if he's actually continued down the path of any kind of physician work at all, or if he just cut that cord and said, I'm done with that. So there's going to be moments in your life when retirement occurs. I want to encourage you to write down the things that can make that difference. And I gave you a couple. Children are married. The last one is married. They have their bills paid. They have a home, right? Maybe you just want to make sure your kids have a house to live in.
Yeah,
Maybe your student loan debts are paid off.
That's right. That's right. And a lot of you might still be helping your children or your adult children paying off some of those loans, or those plus loans, as they've been called, where you've taken on a part of that responsibility. So in some form or fashion, you might feel like, we haven't said it yet, but you have some breathing room financially when you reach some milestones. Maybe it's in your kids' lives or your life, but whatever have you, you have to look forward to something, because just existing, you're going to breeze right through whatever you thought was going to be what it looked like on the other side. So a big part of this for you is to write down your goals. Have a time frame in mind. Say, I want to do this for 15 years or 20 years, or I want to have a different look and feel to my life financially, or I want to start traveling more once my kids are settled. And, in some of those examples Arif gave you. So those are all important things, because to run this race, to save for retirement, to pay off debt, to help your family, to get to all these places and reach these milestones, and then to not check in with yourself, what are you doing all this for?
That's right. Part of this passion in life is to realize, I think the next generation, when you couple, and this is the first time I've heard this, because in our industry, we track this stuff pretty carefully. This is the first time I've heard that they've expanded the generation of the millennials and have said that there's somewhere around 80 million of them, which of course makes it larger than the baby boomer generation. Wow. I'm a little hesitant to buy it. Maybe they're using things like spending trends, social patterns to expand that millennial version being 80 million. Because if that's the case, here's what's happening. When your retirement was, we're going to buy a house for $300,000 in our 50s, in our 30s, and then sell it in our 50s for $1 million. And that's part of my retirement planning, because my parents did. They bought a house in the 70s for $30,000, and they're going to sell it for $400,000. So that's part of their wealth. I don't think that's going to be the case for you. For you and I to buy a house for $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 in our late 30s, 40s, or even early 50s, and expect to have that sale price of that house be part of our retirement is not as secure as an idea as it once was. Because a $400,000 or $500,000 house that we purchased for 15 or 20 years later, even though we've paid down the mortgage quite a bit, the house prices have to go up so high and interest rates have to be so low.
That's right.
For today's financial incomes in order for them to afford it. So I think a passion shift has to happen financially, where people are looking at their old home, and instead of saying, well, I'm going to cash it out and take $500,000 and go buy my house in Idaho, or pay off my my vacation home at the beach or whatever, I think, Jeff, we're going to see that become a rental property.
That's right. Because the market doesn't wait for you, does it? Well, hey, look, I plan on retiring when I'm 60, and that just happened to be at the time where maybe the real estate market, or whatever market we're talking about, happens to just take a dive, or it recesses and things change. And what happens? Now your plan is kaput. You can't retire the same way. Or you retire in a high market, and then you're used to that sort of wealth and that affluence and that type of climate. And then it changes, and then you have to redraw the plans in a year or two. So it's never really about that exact moment in time, but I would encourage you to take a look. And Arif, you've talked about this so many times, I can't drive it home enough. That red zone, as we call it, the 5 years before retirement, is really a great time to check in, because you can start to take a look at what might be on the horizon. Like right now, if you think in 5 years your house is going to be a particular value and you're going to sell it at that moment in time, what if you never get there?
Yeah.
Does that mean you can't retire?
Maybe selling it sooner, for example, and then renting for the next 3 years until you're saying, now I'm ready to retire, maybe that's a wiser move. Do the math and say, if I pay 3 years of mortgage extra on my house, how much further will it go down? And then you check with your financial advisor or your CPA, and you say, if I sell it now, what kind of tax consequences do I have?
Yes.
And then what can I do with the extra money? It's nice that we have a big bunch of cash, but what should I do with it to ensure that I have a steady stream of income, that I've protected it from this crazy stock market that goes up and down all the time? How do I build that? Those are some options, especially if you're pretty clear that retirement is sooner rather than later. Within 5 years, I think it's okay to start making some permanent decisions, 2, 3 years out from that date, especially if you're timing, like Jeff was saying, the market. I don't think anybody can time the real estate market, the stock market,
right.
I don't know, the grocery market the right way.
Yeah.
So just get enough. Buy low and sell high. It didn't say buy low and sell at the top.
That's right.
So that means if you've made money and you can say, I'm going to do something with that money and I'm going to build a plan around that money, maybe it's the right thing to do to say I'm going to sell earlier rather than later. We'll come back in just a minute, discuss that a little bit more. My name is Arif Halaby, along with Jeff Gerard on Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. It's our way to help you get out of debt, manage your financial life. That's what you have to do because nobody's going to do it for you. We're here to help, though, when we come back on Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour on AM 1220 KHTS.